Hi, everybody. So I'm going to go through the talk as normal from the very beginning with the same corny jokes that I gave the last time. If you've already seen the beginning like thoroughly and you don't need to hear them again, I'm going to put time markings in the bottom so you can kind of get a sense of where certain parts start so that you don't have to rewatch things that you did already see. Okay, so hi. I'm very sad I can't be there today. I'm very sad we're having technical difficulties. We're very far apart, and that's too bad. I want to thank you all for being dedicated to your work and being dedicated to your work in such a crazy, traumatic time, and for giving up time to work on your teaching practice. And then, who am I and what am I doing here? So, my name is Jill Hogan, and I am an assistant professor of psychology at Siena College. My research interests are in habits of mind in music and visual art education. I'm very interested in tab. I've been to a lot of tab rooms. I had a general music room modeled off of tab while I was a general music teacher, which I did for several years before coming back to academia. Wait a minute. Oh my God, she's not an art teacher. It is true. If you were listening in the last slide, I am not an art teacher. I'm a music teacher and a researcher. I've seen a lot of tab studios in action, and I said to but I did say to Dale and Abby and Kelly when they invited me, I was like, well, you know, I'm not a teacher, right? Like, I don't have any, teaching tricks. And they said, yeah, it's okay. So I'm going to try to focus on some of the things that I bring to the tab community that maybe are a little different. So questions like the what, the how, the where, the when, all of those sorts of questions are questions about the ins and outs of teaching. Like, how does your studio work? How are you going to get kids to do what they need to do? What goes in the fiber studio? I have honestly no idea. Probably needles and fabric. How do I keep students from leaving their brushes face down? I don't know. What should I put in the clay studio? Or where should I put it? That sounds messy and water, and I have no idea. When will I know that my artists are ready to open another studio? All of these are day-to-day questions of a tab studio that many people watching this video are more likely to have better answers for. They're better equipped to answer them. And so I want to acknowledge that I'm speaking to experts in teaching of tab, and I am not one. What I do think I bring to the table is, why does tab work? That's the question that I really like to think about, that I kind of spend my research time, spend my free time, on the bus or whatever. This is something I think about a lot. If we're going to focus today on why does tab work, there's a question that comes before that we're kind of like skipping. And that question is, does tab work? And we can debate about that question, because what does work mean? What is a valid indicator of whether or not something works? But I trust that I'm talking to a tab-friendly audience, an audience who is choosing to have tab in their studios, or who wants to switch to have tab in their studios, and who already see or are open to seeing the ways in which we see student learning and student engagement within tab studios. So I'm not going to argue with you today that it does work, because I'm going to assume we're all on the same page. But I am going to focus on why tab looks the way it does and why that works or leads to engaging independent thinking. Okay, so I'm going to start. We're going to get serious now. We're getting into the actual presentation. And I'm going to tell you about a show I watched a couple of years ago. It's called Ugly Delicious on Netflix. And on Ugly Delicious, it's a show. I watched a couple of episodes. It's by David Chang, who is a chef and restaurateur. And the episode of this show that I watched was the first one. And it's an episode all about pizza. So he goes around the world trying different pizzas, that type of thing. And a question that's embedded in the episode that he kind of gets at is what makes for authentic Italian food, or authentic Italian pizza specifically, whatever you're after. What is it that makes something authentic in terms of Italian food is where we're going to talk about it right now. And I promise this will tie to tap. Okay, so Olive Garden is an Americanized version of Italian food. To most people in Italy or Italian chefs or people who know about traditional Italian food, they are not going to be very pleased with the Olive Garden. So if you are the Olive Garden, we're going to think like the Olive Garden. The Olive Garden decides they're going to make an Italian restaurant, and they look at Italian food and they go, okay, I see some cheese, I see some sauce, I see pasta and dough, got it. That's what Italian food is. Cheese, sauce, pasta, and dough, because that's what I see right at face value. That's what's in front of my eyes. I'm not going to think much about it. It's what I see. I'm going to put it all together and sell people stuff like this. Okay. That's the American version of Italian food. Authentic, and I say authentic with quotations throughout because I know that's kind of a loaded word and can mean lots of things, but for the purposes of describing this episode and for going through the rest of today, I'm going to use it. To someone in Italy, they would describe authentic Italian food as ingredients that are high quality, simple, and local. They have not been shipped all over the place. They have not been pumped with sodium, and they're simple, local, high quality. Those are the words that an Italian chef would use to describe what is authentic Italian food. That's what makes it Italian food. So according to that definition of Italian food, that would mean that if we were in Colorado, the most high quality, simple, and local things might be wheat, corn, barley, apples, peaches, lamb. If we were going to make the most simple and local and high quality, because it hasn't been shipped very far, food for Colorado, it might encompass those things because those are, from what I understand, your primary crop exports. So there, it would look very different if we use this definition. No one says, oh, let's have Italian night, like grab me some peaches and corn. Nobody does that, but it would fulfill in Colorado the definition of high quality, simple, and local, because it's getting not at what you see, face value, it's getting at the why those ingredients were chosen. Why? Because they're simple, because they're local. Okay, so shipping over flour and mozzarella from Italy, like when you see folks say, oh, we have authentic Italian imports, it's not really authentic by the Italian definition that I've given you because it doesn't encompass the why of choosing ingredients. Okay, it is just taking things at face value. This is what I see. This is what it must be. Now that I've taken you on a field trip to talk about Italian food, I want to use that same lens, the Olive Garden lens versus the authentic lens, to look at tab classrooms or tab studios. So if we look face value using the Olive Garden lens and look at tab studios, here's what we see. You go in a room, you're like a principal or a parent or someone who doesn't know about tab, and you just kind of, you grab a stranger and bring them into your room, say, what do you see here? And they might say, okay, well, I see over here you got drawing, and here you got painting, and here you got construction or 3D or whatever you call it. So I must need that in my tab classroom. Tab classrooms have these centers. I see lots of options. Okay, cool. People are making choices. That must be what goes in my tab classrooms. Tab classroom. Everyone's doing different things. Again, also true, okay? That's what it looks like. And then it's organized or sometimes not so organized chaos. That's what we see at face value, okay, when we walk into a tab studio. That's the most apparent thing to our eyes as we walk in. Today, I'm going to try to think about the authentic, the philosophical lens. Not so much what do I see with my eyes, but more about the why do I see what I see with my eyes. And the why behind what I'm seeing, the choices, the studios, the whatevers. What do artists do? The child is the artist, and the classroom is the child's studio. You're likely familiar with those three principles. They were originally developed by Kathy Douglas and then added to by other folks and edited and switched around. But these are the three kind of primary tenets of TAB. And they're great. And they're what give us the why for the decisions that we're making. Sometimes, though, situations in classrooms are like a little more tricky. They take a little more detail, a little more thought than just these three questions. They're things, they just can't encompass everything, or it doesn't make sense to everyone within the framework of these three questions, or these three lenses. So something that the TAB Incorporated group that you're probably familiar with, that formed a couple of years ago, one of the things that they've done is kind of come up with a TAB manifesto. So besides these three philosophical tenets that give us the why, what does TAB, what are the beliefs that TAB teachers have? What is it that makes, what do we believe? What is it that TAB teachers are believing when they're making the decisions to make their studios look the way they look? What do these three tenets look like in practice, in more specificity? What else practically guides our decisions as TAB teachers? There's more to it, and there's more we can talk about that covers different areas that fall outside of the lens of these three things. So I mentioned a minute ago, there's now an executive board of folks working to kind of systematize, maybe systematize is the wrong word, but to make TAB a little more, to make sure that TAB continues to grow as our fearless founders, Diane and Kathy, are in their retirement years. So to kind of keep it going. Well, one of the things that they've done, as you've probably seen, was released last year. Your very own Jesse Ruby was a big part of, is the creation of the TAB website, the creation of a social media network on Mighty Networks that I encourage you to check out, and then also these we believe statements. So the reason why we kind of came to the thinking that we need a manifesto or a list of we believe statements is because TAB teachers are so thoughtful. As we were sitting around in the first kind of meeting of a bunch of TAB folks, and everyone has their own unique qualities as a teacher that maybe aren't TAB, or maybe they are TAB. And what is it that's TAB beyond these three, the child is the artist, the classroom is their studio. And so because TAB teachers are so thoughtful about what they're doing, it's you could argue that we're more thoughtful than can be encompassed in the three sentences. So that's kind of what we were thinking with these statements. What is it that we believe anyway? TAB teachers are diverse. Thank goodness. What is it that makes a TAB teacher a TAB teacher? In what ways are we the same more than different? What gives us the basis for the whys? You have to figure out why you're doing things in your class the way you're doing them all the time. We do more than just set up the studios and give the choices. That's superficial. That's face value. That's Olive Garden. Those who are new to TAB or who misunderstand TAB need additional foundations to kind of understand the why behind everything that's happening. So this list is 8 belief statements. They're in no particular order. They don't exist in an order. We're going to have them in an order now because that's how time works. But the way I present them is kind of arbitrary. And when they were created with various audiences in mind. Teachers, parents, administrators, students, potential funders. So there were a lot of kind of different interests, different stakeholders in our brain as we were going about wording these and thinking about them. As we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of the talk, this is the kind of the big chunk that we're getting at today, is going through these 8 belief statements, thinking through them, looking at examples, thinking about how they resonate with us in our teaching and our own personal whys and our collective whys as a TAB community. So the first belief I'll talk about, or belief A as we'll call it, we respect students as artists and honor their aesthetic. To me, this is a really fundamental one. I mean, they're all pretty fundamental, but I'm hoping we can take maybe 3 minutes per belief as we go through these and pair share with a person or two around you and just kind of like ruminate on this habit and talk it through. What does it mean to you, this statement? Does this statement fit your studio? Do you want this statement to fit your studio? Do you agree with it? What are some examples of this in your teaching? What gets in your way from making this statement as true as it could be or as true as you want it to be? There's lots of ways you can go with this, and you don't have to answer these questions. You certainly don't have to answer all of them, but I thought we'd just, take a little time and kind of think through them, see how they resonate with you. So I'm going to encourage whoever's in charge to stop the video for about 3 minutes and give you time to kind of just talk it through, and then I'm going to come back and talk some more about this belief statement. Okay, so if you boil this down, we respect students as artists and honor their aesthetic. If you boil this down into like common TAB terms, things TAB teachers talk about a lot. The child is the artist. That's encompassed within this statement. Kid art and kid culture. Kid culture shows up in kid art, and kid art looks a lot different than what adult art likes or is used to, or however you want to think about it. It also encompasses the idea of true developmental appropriateness. The aesthetic of a child is developmentally appropriate for a child. And when we go down's the wrong word, but when we enter their world, the aesthetic standard is very different. So the developmental appropriateness of that is also encompassed. So to put into like fancy language, in TAB studios, students are the artists. They find inspiration, envision an idea, design a plan of action, reflect on their progress, persist through difficulties, and see projects through to completion. So students are artists, and they go through the artistic process. I scavenged my files for my favorites, my keep a favorite, a saved list of Facebook posts that I find particularly adorable or particularly illustrative or particularly like knock my socks off. This one just came up the other day. It's a video, but I don't have it on video for you here now. Liz Jimenez Beret posted it to the TAB group. This young person made a puppet. She made it by hand. She wanted a puppet. Her mom said no. And so that is a work of art for this little person. She, an adult comes in and is not very impressed with this, but we are, because we recognize that they've gone through the whole work process as they, coming up with an idea, troubleshooting, making that actually work, reflecting on her progress and seeing why isn't this working? What is going to work? In a way that I just think is really amazing. This stuff happens all the time. I'm sure you've got loads of examples up your sleeve. All right, so we'll move on to the second belief. Students deserve a studio experience that is parallel to how artists work in the world. Again, I'm going to encourage someone to stop the video for a few minutes, discuss what this means, some examples you have, your thoughts about it, what resonates with you. Okay, so if we boil this one down, this is about what do artists do, right? This is what's embedded, the second of the tenets. That's really what this is getting at. So to word another way, or to put more succinctly or clearly, TAB Studios help students to be independent art makers who feel confident and prepared to make art outside of the classroom and the direct purview of a teacher. TAB teachers use the artistic thinking habits of professional artists to model teaching behaviors and to help students think like artists. So because I'm me, this is where I see the studio habits living, the studio habits of mind. So if that's something you think of, but if you think of the artistic thinking behaviors that I think are Ian and Melissa's, whatever you use to think about how artists think and work and act, that's what we're after, and that's what a tab teacher does. That shapes our why. So student, I pulled this example. These things are just adorable. I know you see them all day. I don't see them as often, so they still, I noticed this brainstorm of 2 third graders about what should we do in art today on my whiteboard. This is what artists do. I could do this, I could do that, I could do this, I could work on that. Which one's most important? Well, these 2, I'm going to narrow it down. Okay, we're going to do this one. Artists have lots of ideas, and figuring out which are most important, which resonate engagement for you, is part of the artistic process and part of what we see from these 3rd graders. This is a second example. This is one of my all-time favorites. Lori Wallace posted a couple years ago. My 1st grade tab room is suddenly Top Chef. Contestants are making Play-Doh food for a judge. There is a time limit, and the judge is in the drawing center making the prize money. My heart melts every time I see this. So that's something that real artists and the working in the world do, is they compete for things. And this is what they see on TV. This is the whole process, and here it plays out. That's something we provide for them in our studios. Okay, jumping to belief C. As an artistic community, teachers and students reflect constantly on their practice. Take a minute, please, or 2 or 3. Think about what this means. Think about what it looks like in your studios, examples that you have, whatever speaks to you. Okay, so if we think of like tab jargon or tab words that are tabish, that are embedded within this belief, the classroom is their studio. That's kind of loosely contained in this belief. The idea of community and the tab community and your classroom community, the various levels of community that exist both for us as tab teachers or you as tab teachers and our students. And then the idea of reflection. So that kind of, sometimes I feel we don't talk about the reflection piece as much as we maybe should, or we don't have it's easy for us to forget it for the sake of time, or just to feel stumped on how to do it quickly and efficiently. But that reflection process is kind of central to how, an artist makes progress, and how and part of that experience that we're giving to them. So just as there is no one right way to make art, there is no single way to practice tab. Instead, there's a community of educators bound together by shared goals and values, constantly reflecting and collaborating to improve teaching and learning. We honor our communities by using group norms to guide conversations. In the studio, students mirror these practices through group reflections and guided critiques to help inform artistic decisions. This is about community building and reflection. Here's an example. This person is Christy DeLomo, or that's what she goes by on Facebook. I was creating a list of artistic behaviors for the classroom, which in and of itself is, no matter what you're doing it for, is a reflective act as a teacher. The list was thrown on my teacher table when a 3rd grader saw everything sitting there and asked if he could work on it. He picked up the marker, the poster, and the list of artistic behaviors and got busy. I was super excited. You can see the evolution of his creativity as he works down the list. This doesn't happen in non-tab classrooms, I don't think. I've never seen that. This type of okay, what am I doing? I'm clarifying, I'm collaborating, I'm collecting. This reflective process and this metacognition and being aware of our thoughts and our actions within the artistic classroom, I think is really just remarkable about tab. Okay, jumping to belief D. We celebrate the artistic process as the most important artifact of student learning. Take a minute and think that through, talk it through. Okay, so at its heart, this is about process over product. That's kind of what this boils down to, I would say. So art products that emerge from Tab Studios look like they are designed and created by students themselves, not by adults. They are often a response to what the learner values, involve components of youth culture, and are strikingly different from whole class sets of teacher-directed work. Tab teachers value evidence of student thinking that emerges during the learner-directed art-making process. So in a product-centered class, looking at if the thing you're most concerned about is what final polished pieces of artwork look like, then those sometimes have an adult aesthetic. But if you're focused on the process as the most important artifact of your learning, then it's going to look different. You're going to care less about the final product, and much more about the evidence of thinking that you've seen along the way. This I adore all of these. I mean, they're like in my list of favorites. This is from Jen Ferrari. She's in Massachusetts. I'm going to read it because it's great. There was a thread recently concerning the quality of student artwork in Tab classrooms. Just today, a student turned in a piece that I think perfectly highlights the difference in quality between show-ready projects of project-based classrooms and the work that comes from process-based Tab rooms. So here is the artwork in question. Here is the student's artist statement. I made my piece wrinkled because I wanted to make the piece a metaphor for what's happening in the world. My piece started out as a perfect sheet of smooth silver foil. That's the world before the pandemic. I crumpled the foil into a ball. That's the world when we went into our houses and we didn't really leave. Next, I flattened it out again. That is us becoming more familiar with the situation and finding out ways to adapt to the situation. It was left all wrinkled and it was ripped, and a large part of the corner just fell off while I was flattening it. That's the world recovering from all the bad things that have happened. I also colored some of the wrinkled sections with different colors, purples, reds, orange, and yellow. These colors represent the vaccines coming out, people being vaccinated. In my end, my piece was still the same piece of foil, but it wasn't the same. No matter how hard we try, we will never be able to fully erase the wrinkles and lines left by me crumpling the foil. But the crumpled foil is beautiful, even if it isn't the same. Okay, belief E. Choices maximize engagement, encourage experimentation, and support artistic idea generation. Take a moment, think that through. What does that mean to you? What does it look like for you? Okay, so we realized we hadn't used the word choice anywhere in the belief statements, and we realized we had to put it somewhere because Tab's about choice. So this is about choices, and it's also getting at the psychological mechanisms for learning, and that kind of engagement, experimentation, what those do for learning kind of in a more psychological way. Here's an example of what I see as part of teachers using choice intelligently and usefully, and for all sort of great, engaging things. This is an ephemeral center that Deborah Doden Campbell posted several years ago. It is for first grade and kindergarten. They're drawing serpentine lines and snow glitter after viewing a segment on Andy Goldsworthy. I can imagine this is incredibly entertaining to kindergartners and first graders. It would honestly be incredibly entertaining for me. And these pop-up studios that folks make to really encourage appropriate choices and the right amount of choices, and choices that really speak to the kids that are in their room right now is a really important part of Tab. Okay, I'm going to jump a little bit into some research that exemplifies this belief. Choices maximizing engagement, encourage experimentation, and support artistic idea generation. This is from ongoing work from my lab, from my work. This is a study that we began several years ago, and we're still working through. We surveyed 676 fourth graders from schools around the country. They came from a variety of different school types. 8 of the teachers in the study were TAB teachers, so that's 131 of this chunk of students, and 38 students were traditional or non-TAB or whatever you want to call them teachers, and that encompassed 498 students. I will say that what you're going to see should be interpreted with some caution given this sample, right? So ideally in a research study, these should be pretty equal, but they're not for various reasons. So there's some things to think about. But I want to tell you what we did and what we found, which really I think helps illustrate this habit, or this belief statement, I'm sorry. All the students in the fourth graders were asked the following question. Pretend that the people in charge at your school have decided that art class is not important and that students will not have art class anymore. Is getting rid of art class a good idea or a bad idea? Say why and give as many reasons as you can. Pretend you're trying to convince a friend who doesn't agree with you. What will you say to make them change their mind? It's okay to write your answer in a paragraph, in a letter, or a bulleted list, and they had 10 minutes to answer this question written down. So we looked at their answers and we went through. I'm not going to bore you with all of the methodological detail, but we coded first to see, do kids say yes or no? Some kids were just like, that's fine, you can cut art, I don't care. Most kids did not say that, but some did. So here we have a breakdown of the amount of children who said no, please do not cut our class. They said lots of other things, but the gist of the gist of their answer was like, I think that's a bad idea, don't cut art. 98.5% of the students in the TAB conditions said no, please don't cut it. That's pretty remarkable. In a traditional classroom, kids don't want to cut any special. I mean, to be honest, we have more data about music and PE that's unrelated, so I'm not going to share it. But I mean, overwhelmingly, kids don't want to cut specials. But you see, this is this asterisk means that the difference, 93.8 and 98.5, the difference between those, so the TAB students and the students in non-TAB classrooms, this is a difference that's statistically significant based on the sample sizes. So there's a real finding here. Kids in TAB classrooms are more likely to support art and defend art than students who are not in TAB classrooms. So that kind of speaks to engagement in this belief statement. The second thing that we did was look at the reasons that they gave for keeping class. It was very fun. We got to read through all hundreds of these responses with their fourth grader arguments about why that was a bad idea. And so we coded them into different categories, and we gave them like a point or a check or whatever based on what their answer was about. So here are 5 types of answers that we went in and we hypothesized before the study. We said these are probably going to be different. These are very TAB things. And so I would anticipate that kids in TAB classes are going to cite these reasons more than non-TAB. And those were creativity, which was really any use of the word creativity. Stretch and explore, which was anything about experimentation or playing. Envisioning, which was about making a plan or having an idea. Expression, which was about mood or feeling or the word express. And then agency, which was I get a chance to, I can choose what I want, I can do what I want. I have the capability of doing that. So you'll see we've got asterisks all over the place. That's good. So 1 * means that we have a significance at the p is less than 0.05 level. That is kind of the standard p level. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine. But this is a standard statistical difference. We see that TAB kids give expression as a response for why art is important more than non-TAB kids. Then these 4 get 3 asterisks. And that means that it's significant at the p is 0.01 level. So that's like even more significant. That's like super significant. And that's creativity, stretch and explore, and vision and agency. So we're really seeing these things as a parent to a TAB student more than we are in students who are in non-TAB classrooms. Finally, I just want to share 3 more types of answers that we had hypotheses about. So the first were about develop craft and understand art world, and responses that gave answers that fell within those 2 categories. Develop craft responses were things about skill, like I need to learn how to draw or whatever. Understand art world were answers about history, about relationship to museums, that type of thing. What I thought might happen if we give non-TAB folks the benefit of the doubt, something that gets thrown at TAB a lot is I don't learn anything in their argument. They just run around. They don't have any skills. TAB kids don't learn any skills. Okay. If that, sorry, that came out pretty strong. If TAB kids aren't learning any skills, you would think that develop craft type answers would be given much more by kids not in TAB classrooms than in TAB classrooms. But in actuality, we see that Lewis TAB, they actually give a higher percentage of TAB kids tell us about learning skills than non-TAB kids. This is not a significant difference, so we don't need to worry about this being a little higher or whatever. But in the area where teacher-directed teachers or DBAE or whatever you want to call others, that argument that they make, 4th graders aren't seeing that about, skills or art history or whatever. The third thing that in the interest of being, full disclosure, the third hypothesis that I had was about pixie dust, is what I called it. So this idea that some kids are really good at art, and art is really important for some kids, and some kids have talent. And that there are some people who have been given magical artistic pixie dust in their sleep, and they're good at it. And in a TAB classroom, that's antithetical to the way most of us think. The fact that everyone is an artist and everyone has ideas, that kind of goes against this idea that art is for some people. So ideally, or what I hypothesized was that TAB teachers would have far fewer of these types of answers than kids in traditional classrooms. That was not the case. These are essentially the same. So that is something that I thought we would find for TAB, but we didn't. So I share with you these research findings, again, because I think they speak best to this belief E. Choices maximize engagement, encourage experimentation, and support artistic idea generation. So if we head back to the things they're telling us, creativity, stretch and explore, envision, expression, agency, all of those things are synonymous or deeply tied to engagement, experimentation, and idea generation. So that's really good support and evidence for us that I wanted to share. And this is not written up yet. It has not been submitted to a journal, but we're getting there. Belief F, I'll jump to now. We believe teachers learn best from other practicing teachers. I think we can not turn and talk for this one. I think we kind of probably know what this means. We're all here right now. You're there learning from each other as teachers, and it's pretty rare for a non-teacher to be at a TAB conference talking like I am. And that's good because I was a teacher. I understand that you want to learn from other people who are in the classroom. My first TAB gathering was at Diane Jaquet's house a very long time ago. And it was just a whole bunch of TAB teachers sitting in her living room. And I thought that was just amazing. And we see that happening. We see it happening right now. Tabstock, the Institute, whatever it is. That's important for us to kind of codify, because I think it's really important to what TAB is as a community. So TAB is a grassroots movement created by and for teachers. We believe that when teachers lead other teachers in professional development, all benefit. We trust teachers as professionals. So here's just a post from someone on the Facebook feed, and we know there are hundreds of these. Just, I'm having trouble, fun and exciting ways to do an art critique for middle school. Other teachers are the best people to ask, and TAB teachers are great, and that we have such a robust share in social media. So it's kind of amazing. Belief G. Studios reflect the emerging interests and identities of our communities and prioritize voices from underrepresented artists. Please take a minute and think this through with whoever's near you. So if we look at the kind of the keywords in here, we have an emergent curriculum. We change our curriculum to the students in front of us. We can't know what's going to be happening in June, and so we wouldn't plan for in January, because we're teaching the kids in front of us and looking at what they bring to the room. And then also the notion of inclusivity, prioritizing underrepresented artists, diversity within student artwork and within the artwork and the artists that we choose to showcase within our classrooms. So the TAB philosophy values everyone's artistic work. We expand the canon of our curricula to include the works of artists which relate to what is important to our communities and to amplify voices that have been historically suppressed. Here's an example of a student, a 5th grade student. This is their showcase work, their WOW work, that went on display. All of the school issues that went on for this person, for Lindsay Richards, for this person is in their school. The fact that the student chose art and chose the voice and agency that they're given within art to display and create this, I think is really meaningful and speaks to the importance of what we do and the space we give kids. Okay, finally, belief H. The sense of agency fostered by our students, fostered in our studios, empowers students to be change makers. Okay, take a minute, please. Think that through. What does it mean? How does it resonate? So if we look at what's in here, this is about student agency, social justice, personal meaning making, expression. Art made in TAB classrooms is an extension of the voice and values of each student. When TAB students are encouraged to use personally meaningful ideas to express messages and feelings, they often use art to illustrate their developing understandings and advocate for what they believe in. TAB studios amplify student voices and empower young artists to create art that addresses issues that they care about. Yesterday, I heard one 2nd grade boy say to another, "We're the artist, so we decide." That's a posting from Heidi Allenberg Wineland in May, which I thought was just terrific. Kids, we saw agency was one of the things that came out in responses in our study. Kids feel powerful in our rooms. And the reason, when we make these decisions that we make, why we make them, in order to make kids feel powerful and agentic. Okay, that is the end of the list of the whys, of the we believes. I hope it was useful to you to kind of think them through, to see how they resonate with you, to kind of poke your thinking. If there's one takeaway, I hope that it's that there should be no Olive Garden teaching. TAB is complicated, and we're very great in that we share resources all over the place. And you see like a cool idea and you're like, oh, that's amazing. And maybe it's amazing for your classroom, but maybe you want to take a second and think, why am I doing that? What purpose, what is that? What do my kids need that would make this useful? And some of us do it automatically, and sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it's hard, and it's never the same, and that's why teaching is fun. So I encourage you to teach with artistic authenticity. What do artists do? No Olive Garden. Okay, I want to thank you to all of you for participating, for listening, for putting up with this morning. And all I could picture was that like I was like going in and out, and like randomly you would hear me be like, "And the Olive Garden," and I don't know what you heard. So I want to thank you for the important work you do every day. There's a reason why I'm not still a K-12 teacher, and you do just the sacrifices you all make are incredible. Thank you to Tab Colorado for inviting me to be here, and then to the contributors of the robust Tab social media communities that I have stolen from to give examples for this presentation. Please feel free to contact me at any time. I love talking to teachers about all sorts of things. I love bugging teachers to do studies and send me information and send me examples. So feel free to get in touch, email, website. I'm not really on Twitter, but there's my Twitter. But don't be shy. I'm sorry I'm not there to shake your hand in person, but feel free to reach out. Okay, have a great rest of your day.